You laughed really hard at that last thing in the front. I don't know if I feel good about that. In just a few weeks, my parents will celebrate their 46th anniversary. 46, isn't that awesome? This is them, this is the picture of Tony and Laura Hayes. They are incredible, and they've done some incredible things. They've actually built a legacy of both faith and family that has literally changed our entire family tree. They have struggled with infertility and then raised 2 kids. They've lived on almost nothing and have become some of the most generous people that I know. They've beaten cancer, they've battled depression. My parents are legends. And yet what might be their most incredible feat became the reason for my biggest problem. They've never had a fight. No, really, they never have. Like, I know you're sitting there thinking like, no, that can't be true, but they're an anomaly. See, every single married couple, we would go through this. We all fight, we all bicker, we all lose our temper, we all say the thing we shouldn't say. How do they never do this? Some of you probably did it driving here 46 minutes ago. 46 years, how does that actually play out? I know that's true, but for them, they haven't. And so for me growing up, for the first 22 years of my life, I looked for perfection. I looked for something that didn't have conflict because conflict never existed in my world. I looked for something that would be perfect. And really the one thing that I pursued in all my relationships, above everything else the first 22 years of my life, was harmony. Because harmony to me meant everything, right? We all like harmony. Harmony is what we want in our relationships. Because when we have harmony, that means that there's nothing wrong. That means there's no conflict. That means everything's vibing. You're staying at 100. This is a good time when you have harmony in your life. It's the thing that we all want because we would all say that conflict is bad. We would all associate conflict with being bad in relationships. Who would ever choose to have conflict? We don't like that. That doesn't feel good. And in our desire to feel great in our relationships, we oftentimes choose harmony so that we can avoid the pain of what conflict may be. And this is how I lived for the first 22 years because this makes sense. This is logical. But then there's this guy named Solomon. And in Proverbs 27, he says, actually, it's not. Actually, he says quite the opposite. In Proverbs 27, verse 5 and 6, here's what Solomon says. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. And now when I read this, I'm kind of confused because if we unpack it, let's look at the words. He says, better is open rebuke. But how can that be better than anything? That means it's conflict, and conflict is bad. So how can rebuke be a good thing? But wait, it gets even worse. Then he says, wounds from a friend can be trusted. But I don't like wounds. None of us would sign up for a wound. I hate a wound. Why would I choose to have a wound? That doesn't make any sense. And to trust it, I can trust pain. Hang on, it gets even worse, I promise you. This is how you know Solomon's confused. He says that an enemy multiplies kisses, but I like kisses. This is what I pursued, as many as I could possibly get. This is what we do. So for the first 22 years of my life, I lived in opposite of how Solomon would say I should be living. There's some kind of wisdom of what he's talking about that I didn't get. I didn't choose to go after the wound. I didn't choose to go after the conflict. I didn't want to have any confrontation because I didn't want the pain. I tried to avoid it. But, and what Solomon's saying, what if he's actually telling us that the wounds aren't a bad thing? What if the wound is actually necessary for you to find full health? I want you to think about it this way. If you have something wrong with you internally, a doctor is going to make a wound on the outside so that they can fix what's wrong with you and what's broken on the inside. The wound is necessary to get the full healing. And so when we change the way we look at it, what we see is that if harmony doesn't want you to feel pain, then what harmony does is it chooses happy over healthy. I'd rather feel great than be great. And this just doesn't work. And see, for me, I wanted to do that all the time, but when I look back at the relationships in my life for the first 22 years, and I'm living in opposite of this, I realized the same thing continued to happen. And in my pursuit of harmony, over and over and over and over and over again, it was like clockwork. They all had the same trend, the same thing. They all ended. She always broke up with me. It never worked out. It always ended. It was never a good thing. And so I'm stuck here now at 22 years old with one that's never worked how I actually want it to be. I can't find what my parents have. And then at 22 years old, I met this girl named Larson. And it happened again. 6 months later, she broke up with me. So now I'm stuck. Like, how in the world do I actually find what I want? How do I find a healthy relationship? How do I find the best possible relationship? And I had to go back to those words of Solomon in Proverbs 27. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. And this just didn't make sense to me because I was pursuing the wrong thing. I had the goal of the relationship all wrong. See, what I had to understand is that the little bit of conflict that might enter into the relationship wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't the thing that I was supposed to avoid. It was actually the thing that would press in. And if I was doing it wrong the whole time, but Solomon's saying something different, I think what Solomon's actually saying is the best possible relationships don't have the goal of harmony. The goal can't be harmony. The goal has to be maturity. See, the best relationships that you're ever gonna have are those where you choose maturity over harmony. Where you choose maturity over harmony. Where you press in, because that's exactly what he's saying in Proverbs 27. And what maturity over harmony does in your relationship, here's what it means. It doesn't mean that you go and have conflict. It doesn't mean that you go and try to find a fight, like, all right, let's put on the gloves, who can I fight with next? That's not what it means. What it means is that whenever the fight does present itself, that you fight fairly. It means that you say what needs to be said in the kindest possible way because the person on the other side of you isn't your enemy. And if they're not your enemy, the enemy multiplies kisses. So rather than saying what needs to be said, you try to give kisses. You try to make it feel good. You don't want to deal with the conflict. Really what you do is you sweep everything under the rug. But this isn't the kind thing to do for the other person. This is actually what the enemy does. See, harmony says, I don't want you to feel pain. But maturity says, I don't want you to be unhealthy. One says, I don't want you to be hurt. The other says, I don't want you to be unhealthy. Harmony says, I just want us to be okay. Maturity says, I just want us to be better. Harmony uses apathy in the relationship, but maturity chooses empathy. Because when you look at harmony and maturity, they do two different things. Harmony avoids conflict, but maturity confronts it. Harmony avoids conflict. It avoids the confrontation. It avoids the conversation, but maturity presses right in and confronts it when it shows up. It confronts the conversation. It confronts the conflict. It confronts the pain. And so whenever you do this, you start to have conversations, saying the thing that needs to be said, even if it has a little conflict, that open rebuke, to save yourself from never having the conversation at all. And you can do this in every relationship because it's actually the thing that God is always doing with us. See, when you choose maturity over harmony, what you're saying is you love the other person too much for them to continue doing what they're doing and being unhealthy. And when God looks at you, God wants to save you exactly as he finds you. But God loves you way too much to leave you as he found you. God is always looking to use every situation of your life to grow you up in your faith, to deepen your relationship with him, and to bring the most maturity possible into your life. And he does that with all of us, whether we're married or not. And see, Solomon's wisdom of maturity over harmony is something you can use in every relationship. Yes, this works in marriage. This means that you fight fairly. It means you set up rules and boundaries for your confrontation so that you don't explode and just go at each other's heads. It means that maybe if it's after 10:30 and you're tired and hungry, you don't say the stupid things you're probably gonna say, shelf it till the next morning. But for some of you, that might not work. And so you need to go have it out until it's 3 a.m. and you're zombies, but you know you're going to bed saying, I love you. Because it's a choice. You choose maturity over harmony. And you can do this in marriage, but you can also do this in dating. When you're dating, it means you have the conversation that needs to happen. Or maybe this changes the way you look for the person that you want to date. You can do this in dating relationships and marriage. You can do this at work with your coworkers. You can do this with your boss. If you're really, really smart, you can do this with those that you lead. You can do this at the ball field. You can do this with the parents at the ball field because they really need some maturity. I'm not quite there yet. My son just turned 5, but I'm like preparing myself for when that happens. You can do this with your neighbors. You can do this with your coworkers, with your family, with your children. In every area of your life, You can choose maturity over harmony, because that's how you find the best possible relationships. You just have to work at it. And so for me, at 23 years old, I decided I really want to work at it, because my problem is that I've never found a healthy relationship. And so by working at it, choosing maturity over harmony is actually what allowed Larson and I to start talking again, to start dating again. Choosing maturity over harmony is what allowed us to get married about a year and a half later. Choosing maturity over harmony is what allowed us to have 7 years into this, a marriage that's thriving and not just surviving. And one day, maturity over harmony is going to lead us to 46 years of marriage and beyond, just like my parents. See, I told you at the beginning, my parents have never had a fight. I grew up thinking my parents had never fought, but it's not true, because they had conflict. They just knew how to deal with the conflict in a mature way, so that the thing that portrayed to everybody else was perfect harmony. See, harmony is the goal, it's the desire for our relationships, but the way to find harmony isn't to make it the goal. It's to choose maturity. If you want the best possible relationships in your life, you can't focus on that. You have to always choose maturity over harmony. That's really good to know. Thank you.
Take all of your wasted honor, every little past frustration. Take all of your so-called problems, better put them in quotations. Say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Walking like a one-man army, fighting with the shadows in your head, living out the same old moments, knowing you'd be better off instead. If you could only say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Have no fear of giving in, have no fear of giving over. You better know that in the end, it's better to say too much than never to say what you need to say again. Even if your hands are shaking and your faith is broken, even as the eyes are closing, do it with a heart wide open. Oh, say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Say what you need to say, say what you need to, say what you need to, say what you need to say. Say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Say what you need to say, say what you need to say. Say what you need to say.